It's not rocket science what benevolent capitalism is.
Yes, it is.
Okay, tell me.
Because everybody tries to put it into a category like something else to figure out what benevolent capitalism is. It's like as a benevolent capitalism, you will always know what is better for everybody. So it's not everybody needs to go the same speed. Different people need to go the speed they need to go, whatever that is. And how do you make that work? That's true benevolent capitalism. Because it's like I'm willing to make more money, but I also want everybody else to make more money.
Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future.
Okay, so welcome everybody to Choice, Change and Action podcast. So you have me, your host, Simone Milasas, and we have the amazing, wonderful Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness here today. Gary, welcome.
Thank you. And I'm not a founder, I'm a perpetrator.
You're a perpetrator. Oh, I like that. We need to change that on everything. You're
exactly.
the perpetrator. Yeah. Okay, so one of the topics that we're here to talk about today is benevolent capitalism. And you, myself, and Dane have a class coming up in Costa Rica that people can attend live and online. And one thing I've noticed with this topic is it's almost like people go, yay, I'd like benevolent capitalism. And then they're like, and they're walking the other way at the same time. And I started to look at this because it's not rocket science what benevolent capitalism is.
Yes, it is.
Okay, tell me.
Because everybody tries to put it into a category like something else to figure out what benevolent capitalism is. It's like David Caddy decided that benevolent capitalism was letting people steal from El Hogar. I said, that's not benevolent capitalism. They're stealing. Why would you let them?
Yeah.
That's them stealing. That's stealing. That's not capitalism. Well, it's like if you have extra stuff, then they should be able to take it. That's capitalism. I said, no, it's not. I said, that's just thievery, plain and simple. But he was trying to put it in the category that benevolent capitalism was being a capitalist and then letting anybody take whatever they wanted from you.
Okay, so if we break this up, because if you look at capitalism without the benevolent, right?
Yeah.
It's essentially like this, like the essential feature of capitalism is the motive to make a profit, right? And it's like sort of like fuck all others, let's make a profit.
It's the basis of it is capitalism is to grow the number of cows you have. You have more cows at the end of things. So it's like if you are trying to create more cows, then what does somebody else get? See, benevolent capitalism has to do with everybody gets to create cows and everybody creates more cows, and everybody getting more cows means everybody gets more cows.
Yeah, and the benevolent is like that desire to do good, to like that being kind.
Okay. Do well for all.
Greater good for all. So then you put benevolent capitalism together. And thank you for saying that right at the beginning, because I just got how many people, if you cannot define something or you cannot put it into a box or it's not familiar, then most people will do this thing of moving away from it and doing everything they can to avoid it.
You described it perfectly. They're walking the other direction, saying they understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have no idea, and they don't want to ask a question because they don't want to seem simple or stupid. But that's how you make yourself stupid, is by walking away rather than asking a question.
Well, okay. This is, to be honest, Gary, there was a few weeks ago that I went, maybe I should talk to Gary and Dane and say that I shouldn't be on the stage with them for benevolent capitalism, right? That it should just be those two. And then I went, okay, why would I do that? And I went, oh, because I was unsure of my actions, etc. And I went, no, Simone, that's not the way you live. Like, this is my little chat to myself. Yeah. I will lean into something new. I will lean into possibilities. I will lean into, okay, maybe the way I was doing it wasn't the greatest possibility. Okay, what is? And being in question. So if it makes me a little uncomfortable, it's always got this very exciting, enthusiastic energy for me that I'm like, no, I've got this. I can open this door to something greater and see what I can be for me and be for others as well.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you have to start looking, as you start looking for benevolent capitalism, you start realizing, okay, so how would it be if everybody had more than we currently have? What would
Amazing.
it be like if that occurred?
Yeah.
It's like the one thing that I look at is like, okay, so we have a guy that works for us who's a personal assistant,
Mhm.
he deals with our cars. And I was talking with him today. He says, when you've got the Cadillac back and when you got to drive these cars at least once a week. I said, yeah, the M6 needs to be driven once a week, at least. And he goes, yeah, the M6 definitely needs that because it's it's a V10 and it's supposed to be this and this and this and this. And I go, okay, good. You understand it better than I do. But I have people who will not drive it because it doesn't drive normal. It's a V10.
It's too fast?
Well, probably because it's too fast and they try to drive it like an old person.
Right.
And I think that's the difficulty is, it's like as a benevolent capitalism, you will always know what is better for everybody. So it's not everybody needs to go the same speed. Different people need to go the speed they need to go, whatever that is. And how do you make that work?
So let's talk about, for all those people out there who have a business, right? So, and when I say business, I'm referring to, you may own a business. You may even, I mean, I'm a big believer in, if you've got blood running through your veins, you're in business, because how do you wake up? How do you create your life?
If you're living, you're in business.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, no, there's a lot of people who are very sedentary and I wouldn't say are living, and they still have blood running through their veins. So that's true. Okay. I'm going to change my point of view.
Yeah. They have blood running through their veins, but they're not really living. They're having a life. And most people are trying to have a life, and they've had a life. I've had a great life, is what one woman said to me. She was my age, and she said, well, I've had a great life. It's all fine. I said, what do you mean it's all fine? Well, I've done everything I could want to do. I said, I haven't.
Right. Yeah.
What do you mean? I could do more. I'm sitting here talking about going to India and going, I don't think my body wants to go because it's not really enthusiastic. It's really enthusiastic about lying down and going to sleep. And I will create something different.
And you will, though. You will. And when you say create something different, can you talk about that, or what that would be for you?
Well, as an example, I was at the castle and I sat down in this chair, and the back end of the chair was made out of these little tiny balls that were about, they're about the size of a rat's testicles. And, these little tiny legs. And I sat back in the thing, and it's dug into the earth like 6 inches all of a sudden. And then it fell over with me, and I hit my head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, Jesus Christ. I yelled for Dane, and Dane came over and pulled me up so that I got up. And then my body was messed up, but I went, I'm not doing this. I'm going to get up the stairs. So I had people help me up the stairs. Then I started using my cane, and I spent 3 days going upstairs. And after the third day, I was able to walk up and down without a cane. And it's like, and David Kuba said, you do know that people your age, when they fall over like that, they go to the hospital. I said,
Yeah.
I looked at him and went, what? Why would you go to the hospital? Why wouldn't you take care of yourself? Because most people my age expect others to take care of them.
Well, it would also be the beginning of the end, and they would use that as their story to not choose anything greater. Whereas I've seen you use that as a story right now to choose greater.
Yeah.
Like to know
what are you
the
choosing? To
possibility.
recognize what you're choosing, to look at what you're choosing and decide what you want to choose.
So when you have a business, Gary, and how important is it to...
So what do you want to choose?
Yeah, what do you want to choose?
Yeah. It's like, what do you want to choose? People have a business for what reason? I ask people, so why are you in business? So I can have money to spend. I said, what? You can spend money. You can spend money you don't have. There's things called credit cards. I know people who said, I ask them, so what's your net worth? And they go, oh, I'm worth at least $100,000. And I said, how so? Well, because I got $100,000 on my credit cards. And that doesn't make you worth any money. That means you can borrow money, not you have money, not you are worth money. And it's like, and I had to look at my net worth recently, and it's like, it looks like, that Dana and I are worth $50 million together or something, roughly $50 million. I went, wow, how cool is that? How did I create that? I started with how much?
Yeah.
Zero. I started with zero.
And you really did. I mean, I met you 24 years ago, and I know that obviously you had a life before me, but I met you 24 years ago. And if I look at the way you traveled around the world, the way I traveled around the world with you at certain times when I could afford to, because I was struggling big time to get an economy ticket from Australia to California, and then had to sleep on people's lounge room floors because I couldn't afford a hotel. Like there was all the, but I kept moving forward. I kept going, this matches the energy of what it is I would like in my life.
Yeah.
And I kept moving towards that and choosing that. And when you say 15 million, it's like, to some people, that's a hell of a lot of money. And I also know you're grateful for it. And yet you're like, okay, that needs to be more for everything that you desire to create on this planet.
Yes. Because what I desire to create is more consciousness, regardless. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this Access Me, College of Expanded Awareness and Consciousness system, to give people access to all the classes we've ever done, which is like,
oh my God, it's
something like
amazing.
It's something like 80,000 classes.
Yeah.
80,000 classes? I have done 80,000 classes? What? Yes, it's been 25 or 28 years or something, but 80,000 is still a lot of classes.
And I think it's really adorable because I listened to some older classes recently, and you can hear the difference in your voice and our voices and I'm going to say the audio as well, like, and how we've increased our tech over that. But hopefully by the time this podcast is actually released, I think this might be live. So please don't forget to subscribe to the show notes, because we're going to have all the details in the show notes for you as well. And you can check that out, because it's amazing. It's just because it's an older class, it doesn't mean it has any less value. If anything, there is like you once said, I have at least 8,000 tools and I can't give them to you until you ask.
Yeah.
And over these years, I've seen all of these tools unravel, and it just keeps getting better and better and greater and greater.
I know. Isn't it terrible?
I know. It is.
Well, you
So
see, that's true benevolent capitalism. Because it's like, I'm willing to make more money, but I also want everybody else to make more money. And almost everybody who's come to Access has more money in their life, more possibilities, more choices, more. So we're a bunch of morons.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with people that you work with, Gary, how important is it to, acknowledge them, or kindness in your choices, etc.? Like, what is that like with the benevolent capitalism?
Well, it's like you have to acknowledge people for what they are good at. And you have to be willing to see when they're not good at something. Like, I have a personal assistant right now that I'm thinking about letting go because he's not quick enough. It's like I have to give him orders of every single solitary thing to do. Otherwise, he just sits around looking at his phone.
Right. He doesn't foresee what has to be done.
He doesn't try to see a future. He doesn't try to see what he needs to do. He tries to wait until somebody gives him an order of what to do.
Right. So it does the least amount possible.
Yeah. Does the least amount of possible for the most amount of money so he can have a life. But it's having a life, which is a completion, not a creation.
So this is what I see people misidentify, Gary, is that benevolent capitalism is going, oh, well, if I'm functioning from benevolent capitalism, that means I'm kind, I would keep them on. But no, it's not. It's actually the willingness to let somebody go as well.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, this guy will never change unless I let him go. He might change then, but probably not.
That's a mic drop.
Yeah.
That is a mic drop. Can you talk?
He might change. It's like I had people that I've had as private, as personal assistants that I, got rid of them. They didn't change. They decided they were entitled, and that was all. And they haven't changed at all. And I see people who don't change and don't change and don't change, and okay, fine. What's your choice? Why? Why do you choose not to change? Why do you choose not to include others in getting more or having more? See, I always like to make sure that everybody's happy. It's like, what can I do for you here? What's good for you?
I love that, Gary. That's such a different point of view. And I know I probably need my utopian ideal comes in where people actually start to get what benevolent capitalism is and receive it and choose it. And trust me, I'm looking at anywhere that I have not been functioning like that and going, okay, what if I change this or
but you
this?
see, that's what makes you a benevolent capitalist, because you will always look at where you are not at what you have done and accomplished and how that, you've got the right answer. You're never looking for the right answer. You're looking for the question that will expand your life and everybody else's. And that is a real benevolent capitalist.
Yeah, that's the definition of benevolent capitalism.
Yeah.
So let's look at that too. And saying capitalism, the bottom line is what's, important, etc. And I see you choose not based on the accounting line, but you are aware of finances, but you'll never make a choice based on that. You'll make a choice based on, is this going to create something greater?
Yeah. Is this going to make something greater? Is this going to create greater? Not, is this the right thing to do? It was very interesting because Chris went to Santa Barbara and got together with my friend Jim Main to look through his paintings to see, and he loved this one painting. He says, "Oh, I love this," and he bought it, and it was a wreck. It had multiple giant holes in it. It was not in good nick. Its frame was horrible, and I went, "God, that thing's ugly." And Estella found a man, and so I sent it to this restoration place, and they sent me a quote on it for $18,000.
Wow.
I said, "How much would I have to sell that for to make any money?" I said, "Chris, how much can you sell it for?" He said, "Max, 10,000 Aussie." I said, "Okay, that's not going to work, is it? I'm going to pay 18 to sell it for 10. And people say, "Oh yeah, but it's appropriate to do that because you're restoring this beautiful old painting." I said, "Yeah, no, and it's not the way I do business." So Estella found somebody else who did it, and he did it for $5,000. And I saw it today for the first time, and it's stunning. Now I know why Chris fell in love with it, because he looked through all the dirt and all the grime and all the shellac.
The whole
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah.
He looked past all that and saw how beautiful this woman was. And she looks like something that Gainsborough would have done.
Right.
And it's like, she's going to be worth more than I anticipated, and more than he anticipated.
The piece that I like, though, is, and to me, this is very much knowing your future, like taking steps to get the future that you're asking for, is you got this quote for 18,000 and looked at all of it and went, no, what else is possible, basically? And then you found something else that's possible. And for me, I get benevolent capitalism doesn't have this definition. So it is that scary, like not scary, but I'm using that word because what would it take for people to lean into it and go, well, what is this? If I actually truly function from question.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you always lean into things?
Not instantaneously, but I get there. Some things I lean in instantaneously.
I
I'm like,
didn't
what's
ask
that?
about instantaneously, did I?
Yeah, I do. I do lean into
You
things.
do.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just
Always.
acknowledge the fact that you do. You lean into things. You don't withdraw from things, and you don't try to find a way not to do it.
No.
You find a way to accomplish something that's unique and something that's fantastic.
I do. And for me, one of the things I use a lot that helps me, because I've I've learned that you can't look for that in people And I also I look for that a lot in myself and through nature as well, because nature doesn't have this plan. It's so malleable
Oh,
and
it
it moves.
it has a bigger plan than we have.
Yeah. Well, I would
Yeah.
like to outcreate nature.
Yeah, outcreate nature. Don't date nature.
Yeah.
You
But I
don't
love
need
the fact.
you don't need a nature boy. Yes, a nature boy running around in a thong would be very nice. Yes, a nature boy, running around in a leaf when you could get to his bits, would be fun. But it's not about being in nature that way. It's about being with what works. What's going to work here?
Well, and one of the things that I've seen you choose, Gary, and myself, and it's probably driven some people a little crazy, is not going to that point of view of I can't afford this. We'll go, yeah, let's do it. Let's choose that.
Yeah.
And it's not making
Well,
money
it's
as
like,
an
but you see,
excuse.
it's like I always go, benevolent capital is looking, how do we do it? Not do we do it or not do it? How do we do this? And will it work? How won't it work? What's going to happen?
So
And I just saw we had finally one of our Frisians gave birth to a little girl horse, and her father is Wapo. Now Wapo's a big gray horse,
yeah.
and she's a bay, which is very
Wow.
interesting. So she's a big bay horse. She has long, long legs. I think she's going to
Yeah.
be as tall as Wapo is. And if she
Wow.
does, she'll be a fabulous sport horse, which is
Yeah.
why I'm doing this. I'm crossing Costa Ricenses with other horses to get unique horses that will be basically a beginning of a breed of horse.
So if you look at that, Gary, like with benevolent capitalism as that theme, when I first met you, I know this is hot, this is shocking. I think you had like 2 horses or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept growing, but you didn't have a plan. You had an idea of a future, or how would you describe that? The future that
Well,
you're at?
I realized when I first met the Costa Rican horse, it's like the Costa Rican horses are a unique breed. And it's like, and they're so different. I knew I wanted horses like that. And I'd always bought horses that were different my whole life. My sister said, you buy all the crazy ones. You just buy crazy horses. Yes, I do. Because what I do is I buy the ones that like to go fast. I like the ones that like to be out in front. I like the ones that don't shy. I like the ones that lean into life and go, not the ones that try to sit back and not go. It's like, and that's the thing about somebody like you who leans into things. You're always willing to go. You may not know how you're going to get there. You may not know how it's going to work out. You may not, but you'll go, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And once you commit to the I'll do it point of view, then you can start creating a life that's greater than anybody else can have. And that's what you have to do to become a benevolent capitalist.
Yeah. And if I look at what you've created by your choices, what you've actualized with horses, not only in America, but in Costa Rica as well. And even in Australia, we've now got Costa Ricenses in Australia.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Sarah Watt is looking at breeding one of her horses with Aguizero. So,
cool.
We'll have even more horses here.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
So it's growing from you having this spark, this leaning into this possibility, not having any plan or any structure of how this was going to show up.
I didn't know what I was going to do. It wasn't that I had this, long-term plan in mind. I mean, I had read a book which indicated that what happened is in all the breeds that currently exist, it's like they would breed those horses, and then when they saw a flaw in the horse that was creating a problem, then they would try to bring another horse breed in to cross them with to solve that problem. And it's like, and for me, I went, hey, this is the way we should do things. How are we doing? And I grew up, like in the 60s, I rode quarter horses that would, trot across the grass and eat at the same time. Now, today, quarter horses don't do that. Quarter horses put their head down and go, I'm a lawn ornament.
Right.
And most of them don't have the intelligence to feed themselves and move too.
A couple of horses ago, that's all my horse wanted to do was eat breakfast whilst we rode.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, nope, nope. I just remembered this moment, Gary. I don't know if you'll remember this or not. When this was so long ago, when you were first, I think you were buying like the third or fourth horse, right? And I want to reiterate here that you didn't have a whole lot of cash flow. I didn't have a whole lot of cash flow. And I was living in my apartment in Brisbane, and I was talking to you, and you needed $10,000 to buy the next horse or to move forward, right? I was so incredibly grateful for everything that you have gifted me in the tools of access consciousness and how you have empowered me, then, now, etc. And I remember, and I lent you the money, right?
Yeah.
And it was such a big deal because I had no idea if that money was coming back or if it was gone. And it was a huge amount of money for me at that time. Like, it was pretty much like everything I had. But I remember the energy of so desiring to give to you for everything that you had gifted to me.
Yeah.
And going, this needs to happen. Like, this needs to move forward.
That too is part of benevolent capitalism, because I see, like with Estella, she is gifted to me and Dane in so many ways. She always makes Dane more important than me. Damn it. But, she's always cooking up what he needs and all that kind of stuff. She knows he's coming home. She does special flowers. She does all this stuff for him because he needs to be taken care of. And it's like, and I went, you know what? We got to take care of her too. And we have, and we've done lots of stuff to help her and her family. And, it's like she didn't have papers. So we paid the attorney to get her papers. And she has papers now. It's like all these things that I can do to help others achieve in life. I will do a whole lot of stuff. Now, I've had people who have heard me say this, and they call me and say, can you give me $10,000 so I can do this? No, because my basic point of view is, and what have you done for me? What have you done for me that I should do that? Which is capitalistic because it's about what have I received for what I get. What do I get? What do I give? It's like, and benevolent capitalism is looking at how you can improve other people's lives as well as your own. Does helping her get, papers help her? Yes. Did it help us? Yes, because we don't ever have to worry about anything happening to her. And it's like, and she's one of the most gracious people on the friggin' planet.
Yeah.
She's always trying to take care of everybody and do wonderful things for them.
She takes care of me, and I'm in Australia, and I know, but the funny thing is, quite often when I'm over in the US, I will buy her a gift or do something for her because of the kindness that she's been for me. And I just want to comment on this because it sounds a little transactional if you're listening to this podcast, but it's so not transactional. It's so energetic, the gifting and receiving that Gary and I are talking about here. And it's taking care of those around you that take care of you, not from transaction, from just knowing it's going to create a different, greater future.
Greater possibility.
Yeah.
So I always want to create a greater possibility.
Me too.
Makes me
And
happy.
there's not a path to this. Like, if you are truly desirous to choose something greater and function from benevolent capitalism, there is no path. There's not this door that we open and go, oh, here you go. This is all set out for you. This is a plan. It's actually not a plan. That's the whole idea, is this is so malleable, and every question you ask and every choice you make actualizes a different future, not just for you, not just for me, but for our whole entire planet, to create a different universe.
True. It's like I yesterday, this guy came to me with some bowls that he had that he wanted to sell. And they were the biggest wooden bowls made out of burl, out of wood. Burl is the way a part of the tree grows where it sticks out.
Okay.
And it's like, it's literally a wooden bowl that's carved basically to make it. And I have got these 3 bowls from him. They're so friggin' beautiful. And Estella wanted to send them down to El Lugar. I said, no, I'm not sending them down there because they will not take care of them.
Right.
Now, why do I have the point of view that they won't take care of them? Because I've watched the way they've taken care of other things, and they don't take care of things. They use things up. Their basic point of view is if I need a car, I'll buy a brand new one that costs $4,000. And when it craps out in a year, I'll buy another new one for $4,000. Now, they never ever pay off their $4,000 cars. They just replace them.
But see, that's also, for me, that's the benevolent capitalism of not, I guess, being stupid in your choices. It's knowing, okay, they're not going to look after it. So why would I allow this beautiful thing to be treated like that? No, I'm not going to. Where does this need to be? That's going to be honoring of it. It's, it gets me so enthusiastic and excited. So another question I'd like to ask you in regards to all this too is the money conversation, right? And I mean, we've had a billion money conversations and the difference between wealth, money, cash, etc. And the one thing I see you do talk about is how cash gets devalued, right?
Yes.
And then you can have wealth building, you can have, investments, etc. And in this benevolent world that we're asking to be in, what's your point of view currently about money in the world?
Well, currently, I personally believe that we're getting towards the end of a depression. Okay. That we've been in a depression, and it happened during COVID, quote unquote, because it's when they went in and they shut down all these businesses and stuff, which is what happened with the giant depression, is people went out of business. Well, it's like they invented a system that would put people out of business under the guise it was about, our health.
Yeah.
But it's like so many things. I mean, I personally had some friends that their family was killed in an auto accident.
Yeah.
Their death certificate says cause of death, COVID.
I spoke to a nurse yesterday and she does like intravenous vitamin C, etc. And she said at the moment she has so many cancer patients under the age of 40. And she said they are all putting it down to vaccine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things they talked about was this vaccine will be an mRNA, which is a modified RNA. Now, our RNA is part of our immune system. And it's like, but a modified RNA is like a, genetically altered strawberry or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like they don't create the same result. And
nutrients. They don't create the same nutrients. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, and I think it alters our, what I've noticed is a whole lot of people who had the vaccine ended up with their immune systems being compromised.
Yeah.
And they've been more sick since that. They've been more time sick and more time going to the doctor than they ever have before. Yeah. And there are more people dying at 40, 50, 60, 70, and it's like, and they're dying. It's like used to be 70 to 90 was the birth, the death rate, the death now. Now it's not. Now it's more like 50 and 60.
So with regards to that, and we're talking about money, it's how do you see the future now with that? With you're saying?
Well, like what I see is that, it's like the thing is that at some point we're going to get to the point where we have lost a percentage of our population. And one of the predictions was that we'd have as much as 50% decline in our population. Even
is that bad if I think that's okay?
Attenborough said that, that we would have a 50% decline at the rate we're doing things. He didn't blame it to the vaccine, but he said that's just this decline that's going on in the world. So why is the world declining? What is declining about it? Why is it declining? What's this about? Well, my point of view is it's like with this declining, that means that at some point we're going to have excess housing. Housing will be more adequate. It will be more interesting. It will be lots of things. So, it's like, but if we lost 50% of the population, where would the wealth go? Huh. Good question. No clue. Oh, yeah.
So if I look
I
at
do have a
like Australia as an example, because I tend to know more about how this works, is the interest rates keep going up. But can I just say the interest rates in Australia are less than so many places in Europe, but it's the projection and the mentality that they use with people going, oh my God, interest rates are going up. So people freak out. And it's like, you don't need to freak out. You can work with this. And as they go up, it's like people are saying they can't, quote unquote, can't afford to buy houses, but we have a housing crisis because there's no rental properties at the moment. People are fighting over rentals, etc. So how do you see that moving into the future with the
Well, I mean, in Australia, you have a very small population. So it's
true?
like it's like you have 26 to 28 million people in your country,
Yeah.
and your country is the same size as the United States.
Yeah.
It's just upside down.
Yeah.
It's
We're
just,
down under.
yeah, it's like it's very different. And it's like, and because of that, you have a housing market that it's like for people to have their private housing is a different thing. And it's like, and they don't give a discount on your interest rates or anything for your personal residence, but they do in the United States. So everything is about personal residence, get a personal residence, get a personal residence. And it's like, and don't have rental properties, but everybody does rental properties because you can make money on rental properties. And people who have money tend to make money on rental properties.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just a different financial universe. But for me, I noticed that when I was dealing in antiques, I knew that if I had a certain kind of furniture, I could take it to San Francisco and make more money on it.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
buy it in Santa Barbara, fix it up, and take it to San Francisco and double or triple my money.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the same thing applies with housing and stuff as well.
yeah.
Now,
And at the moment here, it's like getting a commercial loan is actually a cheaper rate. So it's,
yeah,
I guess, encouraging to buy commercial property. And we have what's called negative gearing here in Australia as well, which just they were trying to cut it out. And I think this was funny. And they did this story, and most of the people in politics, like, anyone who is in politics or successful businessmen, function from negative gearing. And the negative gearing, so they have all these different properties, but they're negative gearing it so that they don't end up paying tax. It's all a tax deduction. And
yeah.
they were talking about taking it out. And I was like, they're never going to take that out. It's like every person who has money in Australia is using that to
All of
their
the politicians that
ability.
that are
Yeah.
using that are in politics. And it's like, I mean, it was very interesting because they were just showing in the news. They were showing here that that politicians make money like crazy when they're in office, because they see things nobody else sees, and they get to realize that before other people get to realize it. And they go, oh, this is where I want to go with this. And they invest in that and they make money. So
Okay.
most politicians come out better off.
And that's capitalism. And what
Yeah.
we're referring to is if we had statesmen in running our countries, then that would be benevolent capitalism. The people who actually are doing the greater good for the land and for the people. I'm going to include the land.
But it's for the land and for the people. And that's what benevolent capital is as well. You include the land. Like with El Lugar, we built El Lugar under the guise of no trees will come out. I mean, they told us we were going to have to remove the top 3 meters. Now, 3 meters is how many feet?
Well, I talk meters. I'm your metric girl, so I don't know how many in feet.
So
A lot.
There's almost 4 feet in a meter. Okay, so that's 4 times
12
that's
feet.
12 feet. So that's twice my height would have to be removed off of that land to get down to the bedrock where you could build a concrete foundation. Now, the thing is, I lived in California. We had earthquakes in California. When earthquakes happen, foundations that are made out of concrete crack and break.
Yeah.
Duh. So I had looked at things that were on pylons. They moved off their pylons sometimes, but you could always put them back on.
Mm.
You could rebuild the pylons or do a different kind of pylon and get the house back up for, fine. And so it's like I decided that I was going to build on pylons in Costa Rica. And they said, you can't, it's too expensive. I said, I can, and it won't be too expensive.
Yeah.
But I had the point of view, it's expensive to the earth when you move all
Yes.
that stuff. And you would have had to have removed all the trees. And there were beautiful trees on this land that we bought.
Oh, some of these trees, I walk around or ride around and I'll sit in front of a tree and just be like, oh my goodness. It's like, talk about them like communicating to you and me back to them and just being like, these trees are healing, fun, joyful, adventurous, all of it and more. It's like,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
incredible.
I thought it was interesting. We bought the place, and 4 years later, the trees that had been growing as fence posts, because that's what they do in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
They cut off a certain tree and they stick it in the ground and use it for fence posts
Yeah.
for barbed wire fences. And it's like, and those trees that we didn't cut down, that were fence posts basically, they have tripled or quadrupled in size. Most of them are like suddenly 40 feet tall and 10 inches around. And I went, what the hell? How is this working?
It gets me so excited about nature because nature will just keep creating itself too. It doesn't go, I meant to be a fence post. It goes, I meant to be a fence post, but I can be a tree too. And it will just keep going.
And I will be a tree. And look at how beautiful I am as a tree. Now, don't you feel sorry that you cut me down for a fence post?
Well, and even then, it's like, I mean, the system that we're using in my yard at the moment, and it's in tropics, but it's part of it is like, it's called chop and drop, because that's what nature does, right? Like a branch falls off, drops to the ground, and then it becomes mulch and it contributes to the soil. And when I hear you talk about this and that they wanted to take 12 feet, 3 meters off the top, we need to start, like, that is so not benevolent. We need to start looking at how our soil is contributing to our lives, our bodies,
Well,
all
our
of it and
soils
more.
grow our food,
Ah,
and we're not taking care of it. They put thousands of pounds of fertilizer on things, but they do fertilizer with poisons in it to stop
yeah.
certain seeds. But it's like, that's not the way nature does it.
It's not. And I think there's a level of education that I'm going to ask everybody here if you could start gifting yourself that as well. It's Costa Rica is one of the places in the world that uses the most pesticides. I have a dream that will change, and I will keep moving towards that to see what we can do to change that. Like, what can we do?
I got a big kick because they made it a law in Costa Rica that restaurants cannot serve butter. They can only serve margarine because it's healthier.
Gross. Have they not tasted Danish butter, New Zealand butter, Irish butter? Oh my God,
No.
so good.
Yeah.
They need more of that. Profit is how much living you can create when you are willing to create a bigger life. Please join my latest and very low-cost membership with me, Simone Milasas, at the Profit Club. SimoneMilasas.com/Profit Club. So, Gary, I know, thank you so much for being here. And what I'm going to ask everybody too is take a look at the element of financial reality that you see yourself functioning from, or even where you live. Like, I travel all over the world. I come home to Australia, or home, one of the places I'm going to call home. I think the world is my home. And I'm noticing just how much we function more from a communistic point of view than anything else, and how much, Europe is so functioning from socialism, etc. Where are you currently functioning from? What are you buying into that is the lies that you've created as your life, with how you choose to live, but also how you choose to be in business? And what if you could lean into, as Gary and I have been talking about, the possibilities of being more from this benevolent capitalism movement, is what I'm going to call it.
The one thing they would have to choose is to have a generosity of spirit. A generosity of spirit is when you're grateful that somebody else has and somebody else gets. When you're grateful for that person getting the thing and having the thing, then you can have more in your life and the universe will gift to you. And I mean, I look at our yard, and our yard is amazing. I mean, it's growing massive plants, and it's like, what? You know, when we moved into this house, there were only lizards here. You know, but the previous people were from the Middle East, and so they had a desert mentality. So they took and they put in decks all over the entirety of the backyard, and it has big trees in it. And they took those trees, and they didn't have any mulch that could get to those trees. They put in no fertilizer for the trees, and they didn't have the generosity of spirit to see that those trees were a gift too. And it's like, we have done that. We've taken all the platforms out, all the things out, and it's like, and we have amazing trees growing here, and we have major squirrels, and we have major birds, and we have major everything. And I'm a major manipulator, so it's perfect for me.
I love it. It's music to my ears.
Yes.
So, Gary Douglas, thank you so much for being here today. I am so grateful. Is there anything else you want to mention before we finish for today?
Yes. Be who you are, and the world will change to be you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Goodbye,
Thank
everybody.
you, everybody. Take care.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change, and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes, and lastly, have way too much fun today.